When evaluating an AI system, the immediate instinct is to look at the technology itself, the parameter count, the complexity of the neural network, or the sheer computing power required to run it. Engineering teams naturally assess a model's risk by measuring technical failure rates, latency, and predictive accuracy. The EU AI Act ignores those technical metrics entirely. Under this law, risk is evaluated exclusively through legal categorization. The regulation organizes the entire AI ecosystem into a four-tier pyramid: unacceptable, high, limited, and minimal risk. The regulatory gravity of the act is concentrated in the high-risk tier. Landing in this category triggers the legislation's heaviest obligations. Providers must implement continuous risk management, guarantee specific data governance standards, and design interfaces for strict human oversight, as outlined in Articles 9 through 15. The critical question for any organization is exactly how a system gets legally routed into this heavy tier in the first place. The answer sits in Article 6. This single article acts as the definitive gateway for high-risk classification. Article 6 is a strict deterministic routing process. There is no room for subjective interpretation or technical debate about a model's safety. Misinterpreting this matrix immediately multiplies a company's regulatory burden, inflates development costs, and introduces severe legal liability. The first door in this classification matrix is defined by Article 6, Paragraph 1. To take this path, the AI must serve as a safety component of an Annex I product, or physically constitute the product itself. There is a second, cumulative condition. That physical product must already require a third-party conformity assessment under existing European Union harmonization law. We see this legal definition apply immediately in the healthcare sector. Consider an AI system designed to operate a surgical robotic arm or analyze live imaging inside a complex diagnostic machine. The AI inherits a high-risk status simply because the medical device it powers is already a highly regulated, safety-critical product under EU law. The same logic applies outside of medicine. Heavy industrial machinery, aviation components, or the safety systems controlling a vertical transport elevator fall under Annex I. Embedding an algorithm inside the safety controls of any of these machines triggers Article 6.1 immediately. Passing through this first door locks the AI firmly into the high-risk tier. Under Article 6.1, high-risk status is inherited by hardware association. The algorithm becomes heavily regulated simply through integration. Standalone software requires a different approach. If an algorithm lives on a server rather than inside a regulated machine, we look to the context of its deployment. This brings us to the second door, Article 6, Paragraph 2. This pathway relies on Annex 3, which provides a definitive, closed list of 8 highly sensitive areas of use. A primary example of an Annex 3 use case is employment and workforce management. An AI deployed to screen candidate CVs, evaluate automated interviews, or allocate tasks to workers falls directly into this category. Because the software dictates human livelihoods and career access, it is legally high risk, even if the underlying code is a relatively simple logistical sorting algorithm. Critical infrastructure represents another major pillar of Annex 3. Algorithms serving as safety components in managing public utilities, like road traffic networks, water supply, or regional electricity grids, are caught here due to systemic stakes. The European Commission retains the authority to amend the Annex 3 list over time through delegated acts under Article 7, allowing the regulation to adapt to new deployment contexts. Under Article 6.2, the technical brilliance of the code is irrelevant. The socio-economic context of the deployment dictates the legal risk. The AI Act does offer a specific mechanism for regulatory relief, found in the Article 6.3 exemption. Falling into an Annex 3 use case creates a strong presumption of high risk, but it is not an absolute fatality if a provider can prove the exemption applies. We can map this exemption directly onto the decision tree as a highly restrictive filter. To use this escape hatch, the system must meet a baseline requirement. It must pose no significant risk of harm to health, safety, or fundamental rights. Meeting that baseline is not enough. The system must also satisfy one of 4 strict functional conditions. The AI must either perform a narrow procedural task, conduct purely preparatory work, improve the result of a previously completed human activity, or detect patterns without replacing proper human review. However, the drafters built an absolute trap into this exemption logic. The regulation explicitly isolates the profiling of natural persons. Any system performing profiling instantly voids the exemption entirely. It reverts immediately to high-risk status, with 0 exceptions. For systems that do qualify, the administrative reality of claiming this relief is dictated by Article 6.4. The exemption is not an automatic right. A provider must formally document their risk assessment before deployment and officially register the system and its exemption status in the EU database. This makes the exemption a heavy legal defense. The provider bears the absolute burden of proof and must maintain total administrative traceability. This leaves us with the complete legal architecture of Article 6. An AI system is high risk if it is an Annex 1 product component, if it is deployed in an Annex 3 sensitive use, or if it fails to secure a highly documented Article 6.3 exemption. The text of the law is set, but the practical application of this matrix is tied to a strict regulatory calendar. The critical milestone for this classification framework is February 2, 2026. Under Article 6.5, the European Commission is legally mandated to publish official, practical guidelines by this date. These guidelines will deliver an exhaustive list of concrete use cases, explicitly detailing what passes and what fails this exact legal matrix. Organizations cannot wait for 2026 to begin their legal assessments. The structural logic of the decision tree is already locked into law. Navigating the Article 6 matrix is the non-negotiable first step of AI Act compliance. Failing to route a system correctly here legally compromises the entire life cycle of the technology.